host today. We haven't heard from Sentha. Has anybody heard from her? No, it really worries me. That being in that country right now. So hopefully we can continue to send blessings to her and her family and all of India. They're in really bad shape. Somebody's got me on their audio. Okay. So we'll begin. Please join your palms and bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver
Cannot hear him.
I've stopped hearing anything.
Yeah, we lost Gilbert, I guess.
Probably when they started recording, instead of hitting the continue, he probably hit leave meeting and probably left.
Oh,
them
yeah.
because that's the only thing I could think, because he touched the thing and that says leave or continue, so he probably hit leave.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess. He's probably coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it the other day.
We have a Dharma dog in Ruth. You have a little puppy. The puppy can listen to Dharma today.
She's gonna come back. She's gonna come back and be a great sitter and meditator, and she's gonna be a Buddhist. I promise. You should.
There's Gilbert.
I'm back as a
You're
cat.
back.
Sorry about that. Every time that thing says continue or leave meeting, I always, it catches me off guard, and I think I touch the screen too quickly and it sends me out. So I'm back again.
Okay.
All right. So let me reset myself. Okay, good enough. Where we're at today is I've been kind of throwing you guys a lot of little soft throws, not anything hard to hit. So I wanted to change it up a little bit today and go into something a little bit deeper, but it's very much in line with what I've been presenting in the other classes. But it gives you the viewpoint of where all of this comes from. You hear a lot in the Chan and the Chan masters talking about ekayana, talking about certain things of emptiness, and we don't know where these concepts are really coming from. And I wanted to give you a flavor from the Madhyamika school, the middle way, and to have you get a feel for it. But not only that, but get a feel for a little bit deeper text to study from. Some of you are ready for it, others of you are not, but I'm going to take you through it really slowly so that you can begin to kind of get a feel for it. This book is called The Central Philosophy of Buddhism, a study of the Madhyamika System by T.R.V. Murti. So there you see the book. And it's an old book, I think 78 or something like that. But it has a very good way of presenting the Madhyamika school. And this particular passages that I'm going to talk about are quite relevant to what we've been discussing in the other schools, or excuse me, the other classes. So we will start. This chapter is chapter 9, Absolute and Phenomena. So it's talking about the absolute and phenomena, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. And it first says the absolute is sunya, transcendent. So sunya here they're talking about emptiness, and it's transcendent. Very interesting word. One, emptiness, but transcendent is a misnomer in the manner in which most people use it. Because if we say, I'm going to transcend something, it means that I'm going to go beyond something. And so, meaning that there was something to go to, something to go beyond, that there's something other than here. And so this has been a little bit of a different way of looking at it. We still can call it transcendent wisdom. But if you remember in the Heart Sutra, they say there is no wisdom nor any attainment. That's completely in line with the Madhyamika school and its approach here in terms of this. But we have to take our time to look through it and then begin to get a feel for this, because really what is happening here is mind. It's mind work, and it's approaching it from mind. I can't say mind itself, but from the self nature of mind rather than from the other side. And if we try to approach it from the other side, it's like an unborn chick trying to describe the world. The world is very limited, but to mind, the unborn chick is within the world, but there's nothing outside of that. So we begin with this kind of a premise, and I'm kind of giving you these little baby steps to get into this, so that you don't get lost in the first minute of me reading the text. So and it's talking about absolute and phenomena. The idea here is that there is appearances. Whatever you see me, that I'm a phenomena. I see you, you're a phenomena. In fact, it is I often say, I don't see you. And you go, what do you mean you don't see me? Because I don't see you, because you're a phenomena. There's not a recognition that you're an individual. There's just Buddha. But we'll get to that in a moment. Prajnaparamita as non-dual intuition is the absolute. So here they're saying this Prajnaparamita, this highest wisdom, this Mahaprajnaparamita, as non-dual intuition. So non-dual means there's not two, there's just this one, but then it's saying intuition. So this non-dual intuition is the absolute. Again, here we're speaking of words, and the words don't really take us there, but Murti does a good job of using words that help us develop a platform to be able to make the realization that all of this is mind. So he's referring to this non-dual, meaning that it's like something going, I can touch my skin, but I don't know if I'm really real. And there might be something else, but I don't quite know. That's still duality. We're still approaching it from duality. We have not put down the body. We have not put down the idea of an ego, personality, or life and being, such as the Diamond Sutra exhorts us to do. So we have this dual type of intuition. There might be something, but as long as we keep the dual aspect of it, it's very hard for us to make that that transcendence of emptiness, because it's beyond even the terminology of empty. And it says the converse is equally significant. The real is non-dual, free from all empirical predicates and relation. So now they're speaking about the real, and saying that it's non-dual. So it doesn't have this or that, no subject, no object. And from any kind of an empirical predicate or something that says, this is you, this is mine. What's mine? Oh, mind is this way. But even if we try to describe mind in this way, we're describing it from a samsaric side. We have to use that intuitive aspect, this non-dual intuitive aspect, this very mind that we're searching for. We use this mind to find it. And so here, what they're starting to do is pull apart all of this onion and peeling off layers and saying it's non-dual, it's not this, it's this, and you just keep peeling. And as you're peeling, there is this intuitiveness that says that this is the process that one would go through. As we get further into the onion, the layer may be thinner and thinner and thinner and transparent. It is sunya, which is emptiness, devoid of every kind of determination. So determination. So another word, determination. What does determination mean? It's like saying, oh, I've determined because I'm looking at this, that this is a water cup. And as it's getting closer to summer, the cups keep getting bigger and bigger. But in any case, I made that determination, but that's phenomena. But what if I said to you, right now, describe mind? What would you say? What is mind? Come up with something. What's a definition of mind? You see, it's not so easy. It's free of determination. It's free of any kind of a definition or a description. So these are all fancy words to say what I'm telling you now. But then again, you know, he wouldn't be a professor if he didn't use fancy words and philosopher and all of this. But we break it down and we begin to see in our basic layperson terms, we cannot define what mind is. It's not cannot be known in that way. And so it says the real tattva, and Sanskrit word here. I'm pulling up my PowerPoint here. This word here, tattva, means real. So you're going to see this word come up, T-A-T-T-V-A. Unfortunately, Sentha's not here to correct my pronunciation, so you have to go with what I say. But in any case, the real is invariably defined in the Madhyamika treatises as transcendent to thought, non-relative, non-determinate, quiescent, non-discursive, non-dual. So all of these are words that we use, and they're actually words of negation more than affirmation. It doesn't say mind is, it's saying mind is not dual. We cannot determine what mind is. We cannot even talk about it. It's quiescent. What's quiescent? Just like that. It's quiescent. You see? What was that? That's mind. Okay. All possible modes of predication are classified under 4 heads. And so here they're saying all of this we're going to describe. The first one is bhava, and it's this term here. B. bhava, which means existence, and bhava means existence or affirmation that there's something there. All right. So I look at this and they go, what is it? I don't know what it is. It's just something really big, you know. I haven't seen anything like that since I went to 7-Eleven. No, it must be something. No, you said this, you know, right away, you know, okay, this exists and it exists in my memory, and it's a big giant water container. And we affirm it. Abhava, the A in front of it means the opposite of it, is non-existence or negation, meaning that it is not real. So we look at it and we go, you think that this is real, you know, come back in 100 years and try to dig it out of some landfill, you know, and see if it looks like it and you want to drink out of it, you know, it's not permanent and it wasn't there before. And so we say, this is not real. Are the primary modes which are conjointly affirmed. There's ubhamya and disjunctively denied as non-bhava, to make the third and fourth predicates respectively. Essentially, one of them is conjointly affirming that there is existence and non-existence, and there is neither existence nor non-existence. And you go, why didn't you just say that? No, they have to use the fancy words to tell you. But essentially what they're saying is it is, it isn't. It may be both is or maybe both neither. So we have this tetralemma. And this is what Nagarjuna presented in the Madhyamika regarding apparent reality and absolute reality. And he's saying that we cannot prove any four of those things. It's beyond that. And how we look at things and examine the potential and the possibilities of it, it's non-conceptual. So those do not help us. So that's why then he just laid out this apparent reality. And we said, okay, but then the negation of it in some manner is the absolute reality, which says that is non-existent. But because by virtue of the fact that it appears within mind, it does exist, but not in the manner in which we think it exists. We cannot determine it in that way. We have to use this intuitive side to feel what is happening. What is going on in mind? How is this mind functioning? How does this all relate? Anybody have one principle of mind that you can bring into the discussion right now? Anybody? Nobody.
Non-conceptual.
Non-conceptual? All right. And then Ian, what'd you say?
Pratitya Samapada.
Pratika Samapada, cause and condition never fail. It is just how mind works. So part of it is non-conceptual. It is in this way non-conceptual. But we're looking at how it works. This is what we're doing when we're practicing. This is mind work, is we're seeing how these things appear, although we are not conceiving of them and we're not conceiving of how they appear. We are distancing ourselves from those concepts and moving towards the intuitive side, let's say the esoteric aspect of the practice, to try to become absorbed by the mind. So even though we're using words in terms of presenting it and cogitating. When we begin to practice, we're contemplating to bring our mind in accord with mind. And it is in this way because it is non-conceptual and it's non-dual. And it comes in this way. And the more we practice in this way, the more then the mind will absorb this idea of a personality, ego, or a life and being. Did I lose you guys yet? Are you still with me? Hang in there. Yes, Michael.
I have a question. Since you pointed out the non-conceptual, I wonder whether it would be helpful to talk about the procedural here, like a process, or is this still danger zone? So if you say the mark is might be here right now, but in 100 years it's not there anymore. So it's to see it as a process in time where it can be both, but on different time axes, because it's always changing. So this idea I wanted to suggest.
Yeah, just look at it like that, but just give up the words.
Yes.
And then you got it. Honestly, I mean, you're like right there and you're kind of like dancing around like that in the circle and then looking in and going, look, that looks like really, really interesting and curious. And the words are going, don't worry, we've got you. The concepts are holding you there. But you're there. You just, all you got to do is let go. You just go, get off of me, get off of me. And then just jump in that moment and jump. You don't need those words at this point. You really don't. You're there. You know, maybe one retreat, I might just kick you really hard so you can fall in the hole, you know. But you're there. What you're saying and you're talking about it, yeah. But me to tell you to buttress your arguments or buttress what you're doing will only pull you further away from the void. Okay. So we're speaking a little bit in Chan, but hopefully you can try to feel from your heart what we're doing.
If I could, I don't see the hand raise thing. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to follow up on that just to make sure. This is Craig, just to make sure I'm not following from the beginning. Because I looked at that, I was processing that as there is dualism when you say the cup is real and eventually it's not. That's dualistic. The distinction is not relevant. Whether it is, whether it's not, whether it's real, whether it's not, whether it has a process or doesn't. It's that's what the quest is to, right? Is to experience the universal truth that all is one and duality has that's not part of the truth anywhere. And to make it part of the truth somewhere, you've made it part of the truth everywhere, right? This whole non-dualistic experience. There is no cup, dead or alive, right?
And who would experience this?
Well, the process by which I would think you experience it is watching the movement of the mind, and then eventually and just letting it be to where you try your best to.
Who is watching? Who is watching that?
That's the ultimate question. Who's the watcher? If you get beyond the ego to the watcher, and then learn to ask and understand it and meditate on who's the watcher.
What is the question?
Huh?
What is the question? The ultimate question.
Oh, that was
it's
the
okay.
question.
Don't worry. That's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So just hang tight and we'll get there. Okay. The words are doing what they're supposed to be doing to you right now. So just hang tight.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we continue on. And I'm kind of giving you guys a break. I'm not going to try to push through this material because it's deep. So I don't mind the questions because it gives you a little bit of a time to take a rest on this and follow through. And as long as the questions are germane to what I'm saying, then that's important. Some of you are asking questions that are, very, very like at a higher level, and that's good. And so, but it doesn't matter your question. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. If I have the time and I'm not, doesn't break up what I'm saying, then I'll entertain it. Okay, we continue on, and it says, so it's talking about whether something is real or not real, and it says at this point has been reiterated with regard to all categories of thought, causality, motion, substance, relationship, self, and modes, whether they're real or they're not real. So this is something that Madhyamika just takes and says, bring me all your stuff. And then they go, is that all you got? And then you keep bringing more and more stuff there and do that. This is something that once Shifu was at, he went to this one temple, and there were two very famous monk. No, excuse me. There was one famous monk there, and so he had the good fortune to share sleeping quarters with this famous monk. So when he was there, he kept asking the master more and more questions. And what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And the master would ask him, is there anything more? And he would just lay it out and lay it out and lay it out. And I have this and I have that and I have that. And so he's dropping all of these concepts, all of these different things there and saying, well, how do these fit in? I'm not quite sure. And he said, anything more? Any other questions? And he said, no. And then the master just went, put down. And in that moment, all of those questions just essentially just flew out the window. And everything was perfectly in its place for him. Now, if the actions or the words were so powerful, you could become instantly enlightened by listening to the story, but it doesn't work that way. It has to be something that there was a sincere process that was going on for them to have this, to put this down. But this is kind of what in this Madhyamika saying, bring all of this here, and then we just put it into a big basket, and we call it apparent reality. And then you go, well, what's that? We need not discuss it. What do you mean? No, just understand there's mind. Rest your mind. Okay. And so he then continues, different systems of philosophy which conceive the real on any of these conceptual patterns are also criticized, and the inherent flaw in their attitude is demonstrated. I'll keep reading and explain it in a moment. The dialectic demonstrates by the series of reductio ad absurdum arguments that phenomena and the categories which define them are relative, valid only under certain conditions. A thing is significant as it's related causally or otherwise to other things. It is nothing apart from the spatio-temporal continuum on which it depends for its existence. Now, I'll explain to you what that said, because that's like a lot of highfalutin words there. But what it's talking about is saying that if someone brings their philosophy to the Madhyamika school via Nagarjuna would use this, what's called reductio ad absurdum arguments to show the fallacy in the existence of their not only the nature of their matter, but the fallacy of their arguments themselves. So it's like taking somebody out to the farthest limb on the tree. And by virtue of the fact that their weighty arguments cannot be supported by that branch, the branch breaks. And so in terms of looking at this, it's very easy because all we have to do is show that everything is dependent upon something else. Thus, you cannot say that something is perfectly real. We could say, is this real? You know, apparent reality, yeah, but is it real in absolute reality? We could say it's real and not real, but we don't get into that tetralemma about real, not real, or whatever. It is just known. It's known. But in order for another, let's say, philosophical presentation from a different orientation, they would have to try to establish the reality of the cup. And they say, I think, therefore I am, I see this, therefore it exists. And they say, well, who sees it? Who is thinking? So going back to Craig, who is thinking? Who is doing this? And immediately that cuts down that kind of a way of looking at things, and it ends it right there. Now, there may be times when a fighter gets knocked out, I've seen it, and then they bring him back and he still wants to keep fighting. He doesn't really realize he's already lost. That happens. But the thing is that the real strong arguments here are that everything is dependent upon anything else, which is what the Buddha taught right from the very beginning. So we should not look at this in terms of from another philosophical viewpoint of Theravada and say, oh, Madhyamika is made up. No, that's the 12 Nidanas. The Madhyamika school is going to the 12 Nidanas and seeing how this goes and this goes and this goes by virtue of what? Pratika Samapada. Causes and conditions never fail. It's just a much more detailed way of seeing how things come into being, but it is there and it's clear. And so as we're doing this and as we're looking at it, even though what I'm presenting to you is extremely profound and extremely deep, I think you're hanging in there with me, because when we look at things, when we look around and see things in our room, nothing can exist without something else to support it. And then when we look at what supports that, what do we say? That cannot exist without something else to support it. And then when you look at it again, say, and it's ad infinitum, that it's like you're looking in like two mirrors there facing each other, and it's infinite. It's infinite. The only thing that is real is what? The mirrors. This is what they were saying. This word, that tattva, is the real. But we cannot say, well, then how do we define that? Well, you put two mirrors together and then you look in there and you'll see your true nature. Really? I only see a big head when I do that if I had two mirrors there. And if I look at it like that, and then I remember going to a barber shop that had mirrors on both sides, and I used to love looking in the mirror because I could see 100,000 of me sitting in a chair. None of them were real. Very interesting, right? This is Chan. This is mind work. This is Madhyamika school. This is what came before, in which Chan developed in, is this kind of an understanding, this deep profoundness that's there. Although we talk about Chan as being without words and phrases, we nevertheless use words and phrases. They're necessary for us to study. Okay, we'll continue on. So when he said that, he had said, and I used a big fancy word there, it is nothing apart from the spatio-temporal continuum on which it it depends for its existence. That's exactly the two mirrors looking at each other and seeing this continuum. But for this is that. But for that, there's this. And when you're looking at it, you see things in this way. It becomes clear that anything that is conceptual, that is dual, is non-existent. And so when we see that, but we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. By virtue of saying that it's non-existent doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real. But it also doesn't mean that it is real. So it's very, very different, because when we look at it, we just understand by virtue of mind itself. So then this part's pretty good. And then he says, Nagarjuna says that there's no entity that is not dependent. And so this is very interesting, because there's no entity that is not dependent. Let me jump ahead for a moment where he talks about the entity again. And it says, an entity has in its being in an environment, it derives all its meaning as cooperating with other entities, which together make the universe. So think about this, and think about what makes God God. And the Christians may be going, oh no, he's talking about God now. Oh, for God's sakes. What makes God God? Listen to this, and then I want an answer from somebody. It says, it derives all its meaning as cooperating with other entities, which together make up the universe.
So everything makes God God.
Everything?
All sentient beings.
All sentient beings. So it's not like this cup says, oh God, fill me up.
Well, it's the mind of sentient beings that sort of makes the cup the cup.
And the sentient beings, they're entities. Okay. So all the entities, they confirm other entities. It's causes and conditions. Without those entities, God couldn't be God, because it'd say, I'm God. And you go, if you're God, where are your followers? Well, I mean, there's a lot of people walking around thinking they're God, right? But they don't have anybody following them except people with butterfly nets. No. So that's not how it works, So when we look at things, we see the things, and even in the entities, we see they're dependent. I'm going directly to it because when we say form is not an emptiness, emptiness is not than form, we go, okay, well, I can hang with that. But when we get to form is not other than consciousness, emptiness is not other than consciousness, and consciousness is not other than emptiness, we go, well, hold on a second here. I can see that on you, but I don't know about me. I don't want to be empty. And so it's interesting. So it's a way of looking at things and seeing that it's all dependent. All the Madhyamika school goes all the way back to the 12 Nidanas and this idea of Pratika Samappada. It's just that they really ran with it and studied it and studied it to see clearly how this works. And so when we look at this, it helps us understand what is not mind, in the way of negating our ideas of what mind is rather than the realization of mind. The realization of mind is far beyond any kind of conceptualization that could be there. It's just impossible to explain that. Even if you said it's wondrous, it's infinite, it's light, whatever it is, people will walk around going, oh, it's wondrous, it's infinite, and it's light, and then you have to chase them with a broom and whack them, because not yet. And so the thing is that here, what we're looking at is mind. And that's what's being isolated out here. And it's an incredible, wonderful school of examination and looking at this. It is not in the words. It is not in the doctrine. It is in the examination and the contemplation of the Madhyamika school, the middle way. It's neither exist or doesn't exist. It's in the middle. We have these two truths, absolute and apparent realities. Which one is the real one? And once we start talking about that as to the real one, we move farther away from the true self nature of mind. Okay, so we continue on. So Nagarjuna said, there is no entity that is not dependent. An absolute non-relational entity does not therefore exist. So who is he talking about now? He's saying an absolute non-relational entity does not truly exist. Our notion of what a Buddha is, we are looking at things and saying, oh, the Buddha, he doesn't have a connection here. Yeah, he does. The Buddha mind has connection with everything. It is pratika samappada. If we're looking at something and says, I'm so pure, I don't touch any of this stuff. Well, where the hell did it come from? Don't look at me. Get the janitor to clean up the mess. No, it's not that way. We see clearly how all of this develops. What we cannot see is the beginning. That's impossible. But we can see what is there. So and your questions will be answered as we go along. Relativity or dependence is an invariable mark for the unreal. The real is the absolute, self-conceived, self-existent. Conversely, the dependent is an appearance. So he's talking about here the Buddha mind, and in creating what appears to be a duality, except for the fact that we're not negating appearances, but we're seeing how appearances appear. And so we understand that aspect. By understanding that aspect, we can obtain the realization of mind, because all of those conceptual notions are put aside. Then the mind is free and liberated in that moment to be able to shine wherever. So he's saying that the real is the absolute, self-conceived, self-existent. Conversely, the dependent is an appearance. Pratika samappada is thus equated with emptiness and unreality. The unreal lacks a nature of its own. So here, when they're talking about unreality, it's the opposite of what you're thinking. It is not something that's subject to reality or the laws of reality. It is the laws of reality. I got Michael biting. That's good. It is the laws of reality. So it is not something, it is. How does this happen? Because it is the law of reality. You know, somewhere along the line, this is from Hammy Bank. So some bank decided that they were going to do something, and here it is. And with me, I don't know what the bank is, but I guess they do know that Westerners like big cups of anything. So there it goes. And so we see the things in this way. It's very interesting. You see everything completely tied and natural as it is. We know that it's an appearance. Remember a while back, maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I was talking about the dwelling place of Manjusri. And does anybody remember a lesson from that at all? Because it would fit here very well. Okay, it's getting late over there, so I'll let you off the hook. But there's no abiding. There's no abiding. The abiding place of Manjusri is no abiding. Doesn't mean that by no abiding there is no knowledge, because the knowledge of whatever is within mind already. It does not have to be learned. It's already there. We can't see it because we're samsaric sentient beings. And given the last 4 years in the universe, we may be known as the clowns of the universe. And so we think we're so sagacious, but it's non-abiding. We don't hold ourselves out to be the supreme beings of the entire world and create a God to support that. And that God needs us as much as we need him. Otherwise, he's not going to be a God. Don't vote for him the next time if he messes up. Oh, that was different. That was the election. Sorry. In any case, there be those who believe that they're God, but the thing is that you see it's dependent. Everything is dependent in that way. Anything that's dependent, we cannot say that this is the supreme being, the creator. We have to see things as they are. And we certainly aren't really high up the food chain. All you have to do is just spend the night with a hungry tiger in a cage, and you'll find that out. Okay, we continue on. 2 considerations stand out prominently in Madhyamika notion of the absolute. Its utter indeterminateness and consequent non-accessibility to reason. So the first one is that you cannot point and say, there's mind. There's mind. It just went that way. Or what shape is it? It's round, like because it holds the whole universe. Well, how do we know if the whole universe is round or not? You know, to me, I'm Mexican, and I follow with the quantum physicists and say everything's like a shape of a taco, and the whole thing is like that. So so in any case, we don't know any of that. So we can't say what mind is. We can't say where it finishes off. And the other one is this non-accessibility to reason. Much, much harder to process that, this non-accessibility to reason, reason and to try to cogitate something and try to make sense of it. The more we try to cogitate about it, the further away we get, because we're using words and phrases, and we can only produce conceptualizations. And so that makes it difficult for us. And you go, but that's not fair, because then how are we ever going to do that? You'll never do it. But mind is there. It will take care of you. in one emphasis, the one emphasizes the logical nature of the absolute. The other, the mode of its apprehension. So when they're saying, one of them says, this is the logical nature of the absolute, is that you can't determine what it is. The other one is telling you this mode of apprehension, or what we could call a realization. How is it realized? It cannot be reasoned. We're not talking about necessarily this this Mahaprajna Paramita wisdom that is beyond conceptual wisdom. This wisdom that is part essence and part and part of the practice, the function. And so those two are very, very important in terms of where we look at it. And I realized that I didn't finish from the last class where I was at in terms of talking about essence and function. But one master was saying, you have the essence, you don't have the function. The one was saying you have the function, but not the essence. So this is what's happening here is one is the essence, is that it cannot be determined what it is, but the mode in which it is done is not by reason, but by practice. This is the mode to gain that kind of a realization without calling it a realization. So we have to understand that is why Chan makes the Madhyamika school a great vehicle for practice, because it is precisely this way. And likewise, why Chan is the way it is, because it is governed by the foundational principles of the Madhyamika school as well. So they interrelate. And so when we see this, it is worthy of studying and understanding where Chan comes from. I would like to say this one on the Sunday class, but I think it might be too deep for that particular group there. But you get the benefit of it, albeit it might make you sleepy, but hopefully it will awaken you at some point. Okay, a little bit more time. The absolute is very aptly termed sunya or sunyata, as it's devoid of all predicates. Predicates mean anything that you could say that's what it is. Even existence, unity, selfhood, goodness cannot be affirmed by it. So we even say in the Chan school, it's neither sacred nor profane, right? And so here's the Madhyamika school doing this, and we're simply parroting what the Madhyamika school was advancing. We're practicing that, though. That's the difference. We're looking at it and going, oh, don't practice trying to be a saint. No, just see it neither sacred nor profane. Mine will naturally accord in harmony with whatever the appearances are in the present environment. The one is precluded from asserting that it is a positive bhava. It would then be subject to origination, decay, and death. So if we say that it's determined and say, I would like to introduce you to mind, and you go, this is mind, say hello. And so you go, well, that looks like a sheet of paper. No, it's mine. It's mine. It's there. No, it looks like a sheet of paper. No. And then later on, you go, where did the mind go? You see, that's the way it is. That's how it works. It's here and then it's gone. It's mine. No, it's just a sheet of paper. And later on, it's going to be in the trash. Recycled. Something else. Well, that's the way mind works. It was nonsense. But you see, mind cannot be determined, and mind cannot be something. And that is why that it is not subject to origination, decay, birth, or death. That's what the ancient Chan masters was saying. If you want to know this great matter, what was the great matter? To understand birth and death. Then you have to practice Chan. You have to practice it sincerely, practice it correctly. So that's how we work with all of this. There is no empirical existence which is free from these characteristics. And so he's saying, if you think there's something, that there's a Buddha that is free from all of these characteristics, that would be called wild fox Chan. It doesn't work that way. Now comes the story of the wild fox, and I'll stop there so that we'll continue on later. But some of you have heard it, probably half of you heard it, and some of you heard it a long time ago from me. But wild fox, there was this master that went into the forest with his young disciple, and the master was drawn to a cave. And when he went into the cave, he saw that there was a fox that was dying there. And when he saw the fox dying there, he knelt down and asked the fox, like, this is so sad. How did you come to this existence? And the fox talked to him. And the fox said, you can imagine the young disciple being so surprised and scared that there's this talking fox there. But the fox said to the master, I was like you. I was a robed one. And once I was asked a question, and I answered it wrong. And as a result, for so many lifetimes after lifetimes, I was born as a wild fox. And so the fox is dying and said, perhaps now that I'm dying again, could you release me from this burden of so many births and deaths as a wild fox? And so the master said, what was it that you had said that was in error? And so the fox said to him that someone had asked him if the Buddha is free from all karmic propensities, all karma, as and he's referring to the Shakyamuni Buddha, and saying, is he free? Was he free of all karma? And he had answered yes. And for that, he became a wild fox. So the fox said, please, kind master, correct my sin so that I may cease this pattern of being born as a wild fox. So the master told the dying fox, the Buddha is in harmony with karma. And in this way, sometimes it said is at one with the karma, simply because the Buddha is pratika samapada. But there is a distinction there that is very, very important. And that distinction is one that the Madhyamika school emphasized, which is that the Buddha is not an entity, is not something that can be determined. So it's very important. If we're going to study Chan, we're going to study Buddhism, we better understand what we're doing. And I better do it correctly. I don't want to be a wild fox for many, many lifetimes. I want to save people from being a wild fox. So practice diligently. I know that this is a bit to chew on, but it's good stuff. It's really, really good. And I'm trying to simplify it to you, because if you tried to read this, you would have no idea what you were reading. But by going over it with you in this way, I think it's better. And you still can get a feel for it. Okay, we'll open it up to questions. No one has a question. Come on, who's going to be the first one to ask a question? You get 10 bonus points just being the first one.
Well, I'll say I put up my hand before you mentioned the bonus points, so I hope I still get them.
All right.
So one of the approaches that I've used a lot is the tri-svabha nature, the three natures. So you've got the conceptual nature, you have the dependent nature, and then you have the absolute nature. So the dependent nature is like just sort of how things are. That's like pratitya samutpada. That's appearances. And you sort of, you make that into something other than it is by clinging to all the concepts and by having some sort of identification with that. But the way that you completely purify that is to just not even have the subtle conceptualizations that are involved with pratitya samutpada. You know, you mentioned Manjushri's not abiding and non-abiding. So like part of me has this like feeling that instead of having an identity as a solid being, you have this identity, or you abide in the non-abiding, in the flux of pratitya samutpada. So your identity is just pratitya samutpada, but you know there's still that subtle vestige of identification and conceptualization. So you know that still isn't totally right. How does one bridge that gap?
I think via the practice and knowing that it's not totally right. I mean, that helps a lot. Where you say it, we say because of this there's this, and because of that there's that. But in this particular way of looking at it, we know that this and that, there is nothing, you know, because the only reason there's this and that is because of pratitya samutpada, which is the way the Buddha mind works. And so when we look at that, we constantly are bringing ourselves back into accord with that. The more and more we do that, and he begins to talk about a veil, and a phenomenal veil over the true self. And so little by little, that veil becomes thinner and thinner and thinner. And it's still there, but little by little you get until finally all of that disappears. When it disappears, the world is still the same. The only difference is that veil is gone. Reality is still there. This is still there. But it is and it isn't. Mind knows from dependent origination how it appears. And so it is that very aspect from the very beginning, if you remember when he was talking about this intuitiveness. So this intuitiveness comes from the contemplation and maintaining this kind of a contemplation. And as I use contemplation, it is resting the mind in the present moment, being aware, and just simply letting the mind see things clearly. So everything is still there. That's why Nagarjuna was saying apparent reality, because it's still there. What is gone is that veil of habitual tendencies to give it a name, to make it determinative of something, of that there is entities involved. When we release ourselves from the idea of this kind of an entity, ego, personality, life, and being, we become actually more functional. We use the essence, which is what you're doing. You're using the essence, but you use that and you carry that out into the function of the present moment. And that's how you'll get over that hump. Anything else on that?
So would the conceptualizations just completely stop, or would they just not, there'd be no confusion about them? So the thoughts and the ideas would still come up, but like there would be the penetrating insight or knowledge that's all that they were, that they are just thoughts, that they are just concepts, or would they just not show up at all?
I will tell you what Shifu told me when I told him that they stopped. He told me, just remember that they only stop for you. So you maintain the function. The essence is in the Bodhisattva path and perfecting the Bodhisattva path. And as we perfect it, then we understand that it continues on. So it's also why they were saying that the Buddhists use the defilements of sentient beings to practice, because we see that, and it is our practice, it is our function to do this. But the mind is clear. The mind is clear. It's always been clear. These appearances are just appearances, just like an illusion or a dream. It in no way defiles mind. But you say, well, how is that when there are people always being killed and doing things like that? You have to see through that. But you have to understand that it only stops for you. So your duty is to try to make it stop for everyone, so that everyone can awaken from the dream. The dream itself is not real. Not very easy for us, because we have this kind of a sentimentality, that we want to we want to make sense of this world. But the manner in which we try to make sense of the world is one that makes the world nonsense. So just practice in this way. Just follow the function. That's very important. That's one thing Rick picked up early from me, was following function, and he really penetrated that very, very quickly. Okay.
So we
That's
have
why I never
Melinda.
said that.
We have Melinda and then Ruth.
Okay, Melinda.
Hi. Sorry for the noise.
Oh, we lost her.
Yes.
Come back.
Yeah.
You're
And
breaking
my
up.
question,
So start from the very beginning again. Oh, bad connection.
how do we, no connection? Okay. Mind create void. Why bother jump into void?
All right. So you said mind creates void.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Jump into the void.
Sorry, because your voice was not there. It's very interesting, because when we say to jump into the void, What
Yeah.
it means is to allow the mind to absorb the notion of that there's an ego or personality or a life in being. From the Yogacara school and the Buddha Nature Treatise, it is equated to the magician conjuring a tiger, and then that conjured tiger eats the magician, because examining the consciousness up to the seventh consciousness, those are not real. So the seventh consciousness also is not real. This is jumping into the void of letting go of that as well. So it's easy for us to let go of the first six consciousness, but it's difficult for us to jump in. And so as long as the seventh consciousness is still functioning, it will create more and more illusions. And by virtue of pratika samappada. So we let go of that. When we completely can depart from the notion of a life and being and just let go, then the mind will be clear. The seventh consciousness of all those around us will still be there, but we will know the difference. And that's where we put our function. Okay. I'm sorry, because you broke up a little bit in your question, so I'm trying to answer the best I can. Next time, if I didn't answer completely your question, ask it again next week, but try to find a stronger signal. And then Ruth.
So I was contemplating in and so I had this just kind of this image that pratika samappada, like without my ancestors, I don't exist. Like, so as you keep going back and further, like basically you just kind of disappear into like this, because without all of these other entities stacked up on top of each other, you know, you don't exist. You need all of that. You need it all to exist. And kind of like, that was just kind of my idea on like just non-existence, and existence is like, without this, I wouldn't exist. So like, so I need all of that. And then it's kind of like what Ian was saying was about conceptualization and stuff, that without it's the mind that discriminates. So like when you say it's profane and not profane, or you know, pure and profane, that pure and profane is just a discrimination. It's just you're assigning it. So when you look at a putrid body, you're like, oh, that's gross, that's stinky. But you're just it is just what it is, and you're just adding some words to it to say that's a stinky body, or that's a beautiful thing, or whatever. So like, it is just what it is. When you start adding your own flavors to it from all of the things that you've come to be, you, whatever it is that brought you here through all the ancestors, through all of the things. So mind is just as it is. It's just what you see. And what you see is just a combination of all of these things that have come together. And then you start assigning things to it, like making names for it or whatever. But really, you don't have to even do that. Like the discrimination mind is one that wants to assign, you know, that's gross, that's good, that's beautiful, whatever, those words. So that's kind of what was kind of coming to me. Anyway, I don't know.
Well, I'll make my response quick, because you were talking about your ancestors and everything, and I'm going to borrow from my dear Dharma brother Sheng and he would say to you, when you're talking about it in that way, is that, you know, who is your mother? Do you know who your mother is? And he asked everybody, who is your mother? And the thing is what he's saying is that you have to know who your mother is. You know, you look back and you want to touch the faces of your ancestors, and you don't even know your true bloodline. you are of the Buddha clan. You are not Clark Kent, okay, or Superwoman. I don't know what Superwoman persona was. You know, that's a costume. You have to accept your bloodline, okay, and that is the Buddha clan. The very mind that you're using right now is not other than the Buddha mind. All those other things were just past dreams, echoes. Let them go. If you let them go, then you will see things clearly. Everything will begin to make sense. The only reason it doesn't make sense now is because you're stuck in this dream and trying to navigate around it and say, I like, I dislike, I want to put this down, I want to do that. There's no I wanna. You are at this moment. Once you see that, then that's the time you're ready to jump into the void. You can take Melinda with you, okay? She's ready too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Other questions? All right, then. I know this class was a little bit harder, but I think you deserve it. I think that this is something that just be patient with all of this, because it'll come with time. The words are fancy, the concepts, but it will turbocharge your practice. Wendy.
Thank you. So you said tiger eat the magician, and also if I spend a night in a cage with a hungry tiger, I'd be eaten. So I'm trying to make sense of those two together. Thank you.
It reminds me of a joke, but I don't about this person that was there, and he was being eaten by a bear, and at that moment he said, recalling his father, and said, "See, Father, you said I would never amount to poop." It's a joke, a little bit crude, but the whole point is this: is that whether you're a tiger in the cage, or there's a tiger in the cage, or whatever, all of that, the point is that there's nothing of value there, and so you understand that all of that is just a dream. All of that is unsupportable, because it requires the support of other dreams in order to sustain it. But when the mind sees clearly and sees that all of these things are non-existent, at that moment, the mind is released from all those notions. And there is a realization, there is an awakening as to the true self-nature of mind. And that is something that even if you go back into the dream, you'll never ever forget that. So look at that, kind of see that. But the fear is because you're talking about, getting eaten by a tiger. And so the idea is if you're getting eaten, you still have this fear in there about letting go. Just let go. Let go. And when you're sitting to meditate, just let go. Let go of the thoughts. Let go, let go, let go. Don't try to conceive of anything when you're meditating. Just leave it alone. Just leave it completely alone. Just sit there in the present moment. Let the mind rest in that present moment. And you will be not far from awakening. Okay? Okay. Algo más?
Ron has a question.
Okay.
Gilbert, last time there was an interesting this dialogue between you and Guoqi while you're in Taiwan, right? You know, when asked about enlightenment, you talk about a dream, asking a dream. Anyway, I cannot. But it's in absolute reality, the function and the miracle of mind is all in the dreams. Otherwise, when Dharma body meet Dharma body, you don't see anything. It's just a feeling of Dharma existence. So the dilemma is that if the mind is like an ocean and we are all bubbles, but without the bubbles, what is the use of the ocean? It doesn't, it's just so calm, it's just boring. So, so that if we realize that, you know, everything is a phenomenal, and if we can realize that the pain and suffering and emotion are not real, it is part of the function of the mind. So in that regard, we feel slightly better that we are at least somewhat alleviated from suffering and emotion, but it's not totally, because sometimes we still don't get ourselves detached. But my dilemma is that it seems to me that we are trying to be liberated, but the liberation itself, I don't know, because we never reached that kind of state. So I don't know, the just the way I feel that we are working towards it, but the fulfillment, the enlightenment, whatever you call it, it seems to be like, I don't know how to describe it. It just kind of, it is a goal that we are all working towards it, but the function of the mind is that's the world. You know, the function of the mind is like a diamond. It's all the fun of is the growing of the diamond. Otherwise, diamond has no growing. It doesn't really prove its value.
Okay, let me respond. He was referring to a dialogue I had with Guoqi a long time ago at the Chan Center in Taiwan, and there was a group of university students there, and Guoqi had said in his limited English, he called my name as I was talking to university students from across the room, and he said, "Gilbert, I hear you're enlightened. Are you enlightened?" And I had told him it is a dream asking a dream about a dream.
Yeah.
And so my response to Rongchen is the same, that it's just a dream. What's happening with you, Rongchen, is that you are seeing through the fallacy, but the ego still comes up. It's very clever, and it's saying to you, yes, but that, you know, you made messes in your life and you do things or whatever, but it's still life, right? You're still living. I can take a breath. I can do this. And even if tomorrow I get put in prison for whatever, still life, not bad. And so your ego is telling you this, you know, saying, yeah, so what if it rains on your parade every once in a while, you're still alive? No, you're a dream. You think you're alive. You think you're there, but the cost is too much. The cost is death. Death, 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 death. Don't worry, because you'll be born again, but there's no guarantee from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime what you're going to be. You know, sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. And so when you see the things, you have to look at the reality of this. But it's difficult because the ego is clever, saying, don't go that road, because if you go that road, that's nihilistic. You know, at least you got something here. What do I got? I got worries about health, you know, old age, you know, and death, you know, but I'm still alive for right now. And so you keep making this deal. But it is something that if you were to experience mine, you'd never want to go back. You never want to go back. Why would you want to go back to a crappy dream? I mean, it's in that way. So the only thing is that you have to have faith that you can go through. The reason that this is coming up right now is because you're breaking it down. And by breaking it down, the self is coming back strong with a vengeance. Okay. It's like those Die Hard movies. You know, you're hard to die, you know, you die very hard, but very well, because you died, I don't know how many countless times, but it's hard to die. But during the life, you enjoy it, or so you think. But when you see it in just the right way, you see clearly. I choose the Buddha mind. I don't choose ignorance. I don't choose to be asleep, because I don't know when this dream is going to turn into a nightmare. And that scares the heck out of me. Now, some people have bad nightmares, and some people have lives that are nightmares. What's the difference? Better to choose the Buddha. So this is coming up, and it's good. It's coming up. It's coming to the surface. You can see the fallacy and the arguments of the self. Okay? Keep battling at it. You will get past that. But it's good. It's good that it shows up. Now you know who you're fighting with. Okay? So I thank you for your question, you know, because it's one that a lot of people have and they don't know. And they're going, oh, well, you know, I don't want to be nihilistic. Yeah, you know, if everything's gone, then what's that? And say, if you haven't experienced it, believe me, that option is eminently better than staying in the dream. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll finish up for tonight. I thank you all again. These are classes that really make you think and contemplate, more contemplation, and they're worthwhile for you. Hang in there with it. You know, I'll do my best to explain everything as we go along, so it won't be too difficult for you. Okay. I will see you next week. Amitofo. Blessings to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Bye.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Bye-bye.
Good night to you all.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Take care. Thank you, Michael, for hosting.